Wow. Okay, talk about a situation escalating real quickly. Many of you are probably well aware of the Apex Legends controversy by now. The Iron Crown event pissed players off by locking its crowning jewel cosmetic item, Raven's Bite, behind having to collect all 24 event-specific items, all locked behind loot boxes, before being granted permission to spend another $35 to buy Raven's Bite proper. That's over $200 worth of loot boxes and Apex coins purchases that can be brought down to $170 with the right Apex coin packs purchases and the right strategy. Following mass admonishment from the community, EA and Respawn responded with an apology post and proposed a solution, but the statement they provided and the so-called fix they presented were so bad that they only made everything worse. What they presented was that throughout the last week of the Iron Crown event, they would allow players to pick out and buy individual legendaries, 12 of them total, that will appear 5 at a time in the shop via rotation that will take place every 3 days. However, not only did this in no way, shape, or form address Raven's Bite's ridiculous paywall, there's also the fact that the convenience of skipping randomization costs a whopping $18 per item compared to $7 per loot box, so that's 2.5 times the price of a loot box. Only half of the Iron Crown items, the legendaries, are being made available for direct purchase, while the remaining 12 epics are still locked behind loot boxes, and the constrained, multifaceted, limited time scheduling pressures people into spending money. This so-called fix felt like a backhand slap after the forehand slap that the Iron Crown event already was, and it didn't help that the apology letter Respawn posted felt incredibly familiar, like your typical EA apology where they talk about how they missed the mark, how this has all been a learning experience, how their intention isn't to nickel and dime players, how they promise to do better, etc. It was just hard for people to believe quotes like, "Our goal has not been to squeeze every last dime out of our players," when EA and Respawn's actions and their handling of the Iron Crown event do not reflect that, which is why many Reddit users took to the Apex Legends subreddit to discourage people from spending money on Iron Crown packs and to warn people to not fall for the same boilerplate apologies we have seen before, among many other types of disgruntled posts. Now, this is where an already bad situation gets a whole lot worse. There is no denying that Apex Legends developers over at Respawn probably faced a whole lot of backlash from all this, and a significant portion of it was probably unnecessarily toxic. But instead of trying to diffuse the whole situation by showing consideration or merely riding out the storm and ignoring the toxicity, Apex Legends developers have decided to stoop to the level of the toxic minority by engaging with aggression, hostility, and insults. History has proven time and again that when it comes to the internet, fighting fire with fire just doesn't work, that hostility only begets hostility, and that's sort of what's going on with the Apex Legends subreddit after Respawn developers decided to fan the flames. So let's take a look at some of these developers' responses, shall we? Starting with posts from a developer going by the Reddit username DKO5. Now, this guy right here isn't just some random community manager. This account belongs to none other than Drew McCoy, project lead on Apex Legends, and the guy who signed the apology statement that EA and Respawn recently published. Among his earliest and most downvoted hostile responses is this one right here, which reads, quote, "We have said it before, but we will not engage with temper tantrums, and personal attacks or vitriolic threads are completely unacceptable. We took a look in the mirror this week, LOL, thanks for all the attacks, guys, and decided we hadn't met up obligations and are making changes because we believe in our approach. I've been in the industry long enough to remember when players weren't complete asshats to developers, and it was pretty neat. I forged a bunch of long-lasting relationships from back then. Would be awesome to get back there, and not engaging with toxic people or asking how high when a mob screams jump is hopefully a start." One user provided a response to this which I think summarizes many people's sentiments perfectly. In direct retort to Drew talking about a time when gamers weren't asshats, the user said, quote, "Was it by any chance a time where cosmetic events didn't cost $200? Yeah, I mean, you do asshats things as a game publisher and developer, like the Iron Crown event, and the response won't be positive, that goes without saying, whereas if you do right by your community, the community will do right by you. If gamers seem more frustrated in recent years, perhaps it has something to do with the fact that the video game landscape as a whole has grown more frustrating. It is frustrating to see games like Apex Legends, which had such a good start, suddenly devolve into these awful monetization schemes, despite the stuff implemented in the Iron Crown event having proven to be extremely contentious in the past. We've been through this before. It doesn't feel like the video game industry is learning from their mistakes. It feels like they're backing out of their mistakes temporarily before poking and prodding at ways to do them again, because these mistakes are ultimately very profitable. Another frustrated user expressed similar sentiments, stating the following: "You're selling virtual items for 3 times the cost of an entire full-price game and push gambling as hard as you can on kids. Everything about how Apex packs work is calculated to be as addicting as possible, and it absolutely preys on kids and addicts. How does that not get to you more? How can any decent human being look at that and not feel gross? I understand the community's reaction has been terrible, but take a step back and look at what you're doing. There is no doubt you're ruining lives with this gambling you push so hard, and you can honestly sit here and call us asshats for getting mad about it. I'm not saying some of what the community does is justified, and I know it's gonna suck to go through it, but you just seem so out of touch from what you're doing." From there, another post from Drew that generated a lot of backlash was this one right here that reads, quote, "There's a wealth of data available on how monetization works in free-to-play games, and we ourselves have run tests by putting skins on sale in the store. The amount of people who spend is crazy low. Most of y'all are freeloaders, and we love that, and a change in price doesn't move the needle." Unsurprisingly, categorizing the Apex Legends community as freeloaders didn't go particularly well, with entire threads admonishing Drew's comment having popped up, which are trending on the Apex Legends subreddit right now. So there are 2 problems with Drew's post here, starting with the insinuation that Apex Legends players are freeloaders, when in fact, many of the people who are frustrated are people who want to support Respawn, who have already bought a bunch of stuff, who have already financially invested in the game, and who are dissatisfied with the way the envelope of monetization keeps getting pushed further and further and further. Even for hardcore fans, spenders, and supporters, there's only so far you can push microtransactions, even in a free-to-play game, before it starts to feel like an insult. The $35 price point on Raven's Bite alone is insulting, but add that on top of paywalling the ability to buy this item for $35 behind having to complete a collection of 24 items that can only be bought with real money through loot boxes or ludicrously priced direct purchases, and yeah, I'm not sure how Respawn thought any of this would be well received. There's also something to be said about the fact that he uses a derogatory word like freeloader for anyone who doesn't choose to spend money in their free-to-play game. It certainly does feel like he's shaming anyone who doesn't pay up, which is pretty distasteful. The second issue with this post is Drew's argument in response to inquiries about reducing prices for these cosmetic items, that there's not much of a rise in sales when in-game items do receive discounts and lowered prices. In response to Drew's argument, another user responded with this sound counter-argument. "The sales don't do anything though. You still have to spend $20 on coins to get that sale item. Having an item between $10.01 and $20 still means we have to spend $20 regardless if there is a sale or not, since there is no option to purchase coins for $5 or $15. It's a cheap move." Indeed, game publishers have done this for a while now. There is no way to buy a set amount of in-game currency or credits. You have to buy them in packs and tiers. In the case of Apex Legends, there are only 5 tiers you can choose from: $10, $20, $40, $60, and $100. So to use $18 cosmetic items as an example, even if one such item were to be discounted to $13 or hell to $10.01, you'd still have to spend $20 because of the way Apex coins are being sold, which makes these discounts meaningless because you still have to spend $20 as long as the price is anywhere between $10.01 and $20. Game publishers and developers who work and implement this stuff are fully aware of this too. Let's not kid ourselves here. They're fully aware that this inconvenience does strong-arm people into spending more than they normally would, and many people in Apex Legends subreddit see it that way, with one user expressing that it feels like with Iron Crown in particular, the game is trying to squeeze every last dime out of us. Drew responded as follows: "We'll leave that to other games that do things like provide methods to pay for power. We are not a hugely monetizing game. We just need to make enough money to keep the game going and make more stuff for everyone. When we decided to make Apex Legends a free-to-play game, it was imperative that free-only players still can get access to all gameplay while also having the chance at earning the coolest looking cosmetics." Oh, come on, Drew. You can't possibly look at the Iron Crown event and have the audacity to say that you're gonna leave the greed to other games that do things like pay to win. Just because this is cosmetics only and not pay to win doesn't mean that the monetization isn't egregious. I also really cannot get behind Respawn acting like they're some indie dev that's struggling to keep the game going financially, given how well this game, that's backed by a multi-billion-dollar publisher, performed financially with loot boxes, in-game shop, and premium battle passes that existed before the Iron Crown event. Drew also said that they want to ensure people who don't pay also have access to all gameplay stuff as well as the coolest looking cosmetics. But that's the issue with the Iron Crown event. There is no way for non-paying players to earn Ravenspite and the 24 event-specific items required to unlock the ability to buy Ravenspite because everything is completely paywalled. The Iron Crown event offers no chance for non-paying players to earn the coolest looking cosmetics, so there's a contradiction there. From there, another user asked if Drew thinks $18 is a fair price for a legendary skin, to which Drew said this: "Being that we are, in my opinion, incredibly generous with the amount of free stuff we give out, including legendary skins, yes, there is a price point for any product that the market will bear, and we're definitely in the neighborhood with other games." First of all, Apex Legends skin economy, and any game's skin economy for that matter, is entirely self-contained and is in no way directly tied to skin economies of other titles. It's ultimately up to a game's respective publisher and developer to set parameters and decide how much items will cost in their miniature economies and markets. And if EA and Respawn really wanted to, they could lower prices and strive to achieve a better balance between bringing money in while keeping players happy. Second of all, $18 for a mere skin is ridiculous, especially when you consider what other games have to offer for that kind of money. One user, for example, pointed out how in League of Legends, $20 will give you a skin that grants a new model, new animations, new character voice, and new ability effects, whereas in Apex, $20 nets you something as simple as a bald wraith. Plenty of comparisons like these can be found all throughout the subreddit, pointing out how much more you can get for $20 in other titles. Now, I want to be careful here because as soon as anyone starts highlighting how much worse a current monetization scheme is compared to a previous one, that previous scheme, which once upon a time may have been seen as egregious, all of a sudden becomes acceptable and normalized. And this is something I don't want to contribute to because this is how goalposts get pushed. In a few years, monetization may get so bad that what Apex Legends is pulling here may seem acceptable and become normalized, and this constant goalpost moving is what led us from Oblivion Horse Armor to where we are now. But it's still worth highlighting how stingy Apex Legends in-game purchases are compared to other titles. And now we delve into a really petty response on Respawn's part. In response to Drew's asshat comment, one Reddit user provided a rather strongly worded response highlighting their disdain towards Drew's comments about there being a time when players weren't asshats to developers. For my part, I think that while the core of this user's post does make tangible points, the language he used was definitely not at all constructive. It didn't help the situation. Now, at this point, Drew could have risen above this guy and issued a proper response or just ignored it outright, but he instead decided to stoop to this level, responding with, quote, "Hey everyone, found the dick I was talking about. Guess what? I didn't even read your comment except for the first sentence and last. This kind of garbage doesn't warrant a reply, but lucky for you, I already made a comment about this earlier. Go find it." Yeah. Real professional. This will certainly help the situation. I mean, come on. This kind of childish response is beneath you, man. The fact that I can't tell the difference between Drew's post and your typical internet troll just says a lot. It's not just Drew who's been engaging in this manner. Reddit user JFreshRespawn, whose real name is Jay Frechette, an actual community manager at the studio, also resorted to unprofessional responses. For example, in response to one guy who reduced the entire apology post down to, quote, "What I read was, whales didn't buy enough Apex packs to make up for everyone else not buying, so we have to do something to get pretend goodwill from players." Jay responded with this, "You should work on your reading comprehension." Another user asked him, quote, "So just to be clear, you're not apologizing for the outrageous prices, the massive paywall, or the gambling. You're apologizing for not telling us about it first?" I actually think this is not an inaccurate assessment if you read Respawn's apology post, which talks about how they need to do a better job with setting people's expectations, but it never really addresses what people are actually upset about, the way Iron Crown was designed with monetization as the focus through ridiculous paywalls and pricing models. Jay's response to this question was simple: you should read the post again. Next up, a user insinuated that Apex Legends is using the 2 steps over the line, 1 steps back tactic in order to move the microtransactions goalpost. To that, Jay sarcastically responded with, "Why don't devs talk to us more here and be more transparent?" From there, we have a user who posted a list of games that you could buy for the $20 Respawn is charging for a single measly skin. Jay's response here was less aggressive and more dismissive. Instead of addressing how expensive these skins are, he simply said, "You all should totally buy those games, great choices." In another post, the user pointed out how Jay had been silent for quite a while when this whole situation started, about which Jay had this to say: "I don't engage when you guys are being hostile. I wasn't being silent, I was letting the sub cool down." Right, letting the sub cool down. Drew and Jay certainly did a great job helping with that. Finally, a Reddit user criticized the way Respawn has been handling this whole ordeal with the following post: "Completely abhor this meager attempt to walk back the backlash." And then the immature, "Well, you wonder why we don't talk to the community more?" talking about how your player base is full of asshats and dicks in your apology post. Not a good look at all. What a surprise. People reject money-hungry tactics and tend to respond angrily. Not gonna garner any sympathy from me, nor any playing time, and surely no more money. Bought Battle Passes 1 and 2, nothing ever again. Add that to your statistics showing great player involvement from this mockery of an event. To that, Jay responded as follows: "So it's fine for you all to call us liars full of shit and other personal attacks when we communicate an apology and update to the event, but we are immature when we call people out on it. Got it." You know, I've gotta say, for a community manager, Jay sure as hell doesn't seem to do a great job at, well, managing the community. I don't feel a community manager should be going out of their way to stoke the flames with this mentality of an eye for an eye. They should be striving to diffuse these kinds of situations. Don't get me wrong, it seriously sucks that there will be trolls out there who will step way over the line and start doling out seriously nasty insults and even death threats against developers. But by acknowledging their existence with a response and shining a spotlight on these nobodies, they're only feeding these kinds of crappy people. Why not focus instead on responding to people who are being constructive in the way they're providing feedback, asking questions, relaying comments, and expressing their frustrations? So many of Respawn's developers' responses on the subreddit so far hone in on targeting the toxic side of the community, while paying far less attention to people who are offering legitimate criticism who could help improve the game. To some extent, I guess I get where Respawn is coming from. When I'm scrolling through comments, for example, the one negative comment among thousands of positives is the one that I'm more likely to be stuck up on, and this happens to a lot of people on social media. But I've always found the best solution is to ignore the toxic nobodies who are seeking attention, because they truly have nothing of value to offer, and giving them attention is always a losing battle. Now, in the case of Respawn, they are in a situation where a significant portion of the community does feel as though the studio seriously messed up, which only amplifies disdain against Respawn's very defensive stance, because it makes them look like they're not willing to admit wrongdoing or listen or try to improve. At times like these, it is pivotal to express humility and a willingness to listen while issuing the proper apologies to the people who are actually being constructive and are actually willing to have a proper discourse. Ignore the toxic and the vitriolic instead of getting so caught up in them that you end up forgetting, dismissing, and ignoring people who do have good intentions with their feedback. And most certainly in a scenario like this, do not stoop to the level level of engaging in an unprofessional manner with sarcasm, petty insults, and what have you, because that never, ever leads anywhere good. Like, ever. This goes doubly true in your position, Respawn. You are a very well-known, major game development studio that people look up to, that has influence. People actually pay attention to the things you do and say. Your actions have more consequences than some nobody internet troll and toxic person, in large part because people are genuinely interested in your endeavors and want to see you thrive. So the last thing anyone wants to see from you, Respawn, is this level of discourse. Your high standing in the games industry makes it doubly important for you to lead by example and not lower yourself to the trolls, because the second you do, the trolls win. This is exactly what they want. It's also important for Respawn to acknowledge where they went wrong, which they honestly haven't fully done yet. They have yet to admit that all of the paywalls behind Raven's Bite and the entirety of the Iron Crown event were just horrible ideas. They have yet to acknowledge that $18 for one skin is freaking ridiculous, and they have yet to express a strive to change that for the better. They have instead continued to be defensive about the stuff they try to pull with Iron Crown, and that's not going to win any favors either. To be fair, not all Respawn developers engaged in an inflammatory manner. When one Reddit user suggested nefarious intent, Respawn developer Rami CV responded in a calm and respectable fashion as follows. Hi, hey listen, I get that you don't know anyone from the studio personally, that we might as well be evil robots or trained murder pigeons or whatever, for all you know. But if your takeaway from the last 6 months of Apex is, these diabolical lying money geniuses know exactly what they're doing to surgically extract our soul cash, then oh buddy. Personal opinion here from a grunt in the trenches, the last project this team put out was a $60 box product that I love. I assumed we were stuck doing that until the heat death of the universe, but lo and behold, Apex. I am super proud of the leadership and business teams for getting us from the $60 at the door or get the fuck off nerds sales model to $0 to play, no pay to win, cosmetics and battle pass keep the lights on. Obviously we don't have it all to a science yet, but I got to work on gameplay stuff today that everyone will play for free in X weeks, months, and that's cool. Anyhow, Drew and Jay are being honest with you and they're good people. I'd suggest engaging with them in good faith in those Q&A threads if you have concerns or questions about all this. I mean, argue and have your opinions for sure, but the conspiracy and personal attack stuff is disheartening. See if you engage like this, people will be more willing to listen to you and you'll garner over 1,000 upvotes along the way. Now, Rami CV denies that they are diabolically trying to extract cash from players, but the fact remains that many people do feel like this is a cash extraction scheme with the way the Iron Crown event was handled for reasons I've already explained. So they have to commit themselves to doing way better and express that commitment through future action, because actions do speak louder than words. I do agree that the personal attacks are completely uncalled for, and I do agree that people should strive to communicate in good faith. But Rami CV has to understand that there are legitimate reasons for why people are so frustrated by Respawn's latest move with Apex Legends, a move that did not feel in good faith, and that the way Drew and Jay reacted is certainly not making it any easier for people who are frustrated to engage in good faith, because Drew and Jay themselves aren't returning that kind of good faith with how focused they are on putting the toxic assholes in their place rather than addressing and communicating with constructive people. So, to make a long story short, yes, some of the crap developers have to deal with absolutely sucks, but at the same time, Respawn truly messed up with Iron Crown. The backlash didn't come from nowhere, and the way they've responded and are being so stubborn about their ways is far from ideal. Only time will tell how this all plays out in the next few days and what sort of effect it has on the Apex Legends community and the game's future prospects, but it's unfortunate that Respawn seems so out of touch with their recent misgivings and being so defensive about people trying to point this out. Just as it is unfortunate that the internet is full of hateful people who will take discourse to an unnecessary level of toxicity and vitriol that doesn't contribute to anything. Anyway, there you have it, folks, my thoughts and opinions on the chaos ensuing in the Apex Legends subreddit and forums. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know in the comments below what you think about how Respawn developers have been responding to Apex Legends' latest controversy. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.